So, so where is your heart? And where is your mind? In this season of Lent, that's a great question for all of us to ask ourselves. And then allow ourselves some time to pause and reflect. What are we focusing on? What direction are we seeking? And whose direction are we seeking? Who are we following? Who are we trying to impress? Who are we trying to connect with, to follow, to emulate? I always think that's a good question to ask. We may not realize who all and what all impacts us, influences us. It's good for us to authentically take a look at who we want to lead and guide our lives. Jesus has shared his heart and soul with his disciples about what's ahead for him, the suffering, the end, and what's ahead for them. In Mark 8:32 and 34, in the Passion, it says, Jesus opened his heart and spoke freely with his disciples, explaining all these things to them. And then Peter took him aside and he rebuked him. But Jesus turned around and glancing at all the other disciples, he rebuked Peter, saying, "Get out of my sight, Satan. Your heart is not set on God's plan, but on man's." Jesus had his disciples and the crowd gather around him. And he said to them, "If you truly want to follow me, you should at once completely disown your life. You must be willing to share my cross and experience it as your own, as you continually surrender to my ways." Wow. Peter was rarely at a loss for words, for a response. He pulls Jesus aside to let him have it, to rebuke him. Peter had not liked what he heard. It didn't fit what he wanted to see happen. So he rebukes Jesus. How often do I rebuke Jesus? Probably more times than I would like to admit. The Message says it this way. He said this simply and clearly so they couldn't miss it. But Peter grabbed him in protest, turning and seeing his disciples wavering, wondering what to believe. Jesus confronted Peter. "Peter, get out of my way. Satan, get lost. You have no idea how God works." Calling to the crowd to join his disciples, Jesus said, "Anyone who intends to come with me has to let me lead. You're not in the driver's seat. I am." Jesus communicated simply and clearly so they couldn't miss it. How often do we miss what Jesus is trying to tell us? It may be clear as a bell, simple to get, but we're not really listening because we're thinking of something different, because we're just not listening, because we don't want to know. We don't really want to get it. We think we have a better idea, a better plan. We're simply wanting to listen to somebody else. We want to be in the driver's seat. Jesus said, "Anyone who intends to come with me has to let me lead." You're not in the driver's seat. It isn't easy to yield, to let go, to let someone else lead, to let someone else make the decisions, to let someone else guide. The Amplified Translation says Mark 8:32 and 34 this way. He was stating the matter plainly, not holding anything back. And then Peter took him aside. With his back to Peter, he turned around. He saw the disciples. He rebuked Peter, said, "Get behind me, Satan. For your mind is not set on God's will, his values, his purposes, but on what pleases men. Jesus called to the crowd together with his disciples and said to them, if anyone wishes to follow me as my disciple, he must deny himself, set aside selfish interests, take up his cross, expressing a willingness to endure whatever may come, and follow me, believing me, conforming to my example in living, and if need be, suffering or perhaps dying because of faith in me. So let me ask again, what are we focusing on? What direction are we seeking? Whose direction are we seeking? Who are we following? Who are we trying to impress, to connect with, to follow, to emulate? Are we willing to lay it down, to set aside self-interests, to take up the cross, expressing a willingness to endure whatever may come? This is a part of Lent. It's what it's about. Time to ponder, time to discern, and time to let go. Pray with me. Whew, God, sometimes it's so hard. We don't want to let go. We have ideas of what we want to do, where we want to go, how we want to get there. But we need some guidance. We need some direction, because it's not all about us. It's about living a life that's pleasing to you. It's about sacrificing our agendas, sacrificing what maybe we want so that we can live a life of love and grace, forgiveness, compassion, mercy to all of your kids. To put the needs of others before our own needs. To want to fulfill your desires and not our own. Forgive us when we are selfish and rude, when we want to rebuke you and tell you, no, stop. This is not the life I chose. This is not the life I want to live. Here's where I want you to take me. Forgive us. Remind us we're not in the driver's seat. Jesus is. May we ponder, may we reflect, and may we yield. In Jesus, amen. Now, Kathy, I invite you to help us with a breath practice so that we might make space to listen and to ponder in this season of Lent. Thank you, my friend.
For today's video, we're going to picture a bellows. So the opening and filling of that age-old instrument, and then pushing to let the air out. Bellows breath, inhaling, exhaling. So allow yourself to place your hands on your belly. Inhale and really fill up with the Spirit of God. Exhale, completely let go. Inhale, fill with what you know to be God's truth. Exhale. Inhale, fill, exhale. Inhale, fill, and exhale. And then just allow your breathing to come back to normal. Thanks for practicing with me.